He thought he knew everything about the woman he had spent 3 decades with. He was certain their marriage had weathered it all: routine, exhaustion, and time itself. But one dusty suitcase, hidden on the top shelf of their closet, shattered everything he believed in. Instead of old postcards or a forgotten swimsuit, he found letters, photographs, and confessions that made his head spin. What was meant to be a simple anniversary gift became the gateway to a deep, carefully guarded secret. Who was Tristan? Why was the heart of the woman he thought was his forever suddenly divided? And most importantly, what do you do when the truth hurts more than any lie? This wasn't just betrayal. It was a scar etched across a lifetime. Is he ready to understand? To forgive? To walk away? Or will he stay and fight for something that may already be lost? It all began with a single lock, and the key that should never have been turned. Greetings, my dear viewer. Please, tell me which city and country you're watching this video from. Maybe you're watching me from a small town or a gigantic metropolis. Write about it. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends. It will make me very happy. Let's get started. Julia and Raymond had known each other since they were teenagers, their paths first crossing during high school. What started as a casual friendship in their youth gradually grew into a marriage that had lasted nearly 30 years. Raymond made his career in software development, while Julia worked as a hospital lab technician. Together, they created a stable life, built on mutual respect and common goals. But over the years, subtle changes began to affect their connection. Julia seemed more emotionally distant, a shift that didn't go unnoticed by Raymond, though he assumed it was just work-related stress. Lately, Julia's detachment had become more pronounced, her mind often elsewhere, her demeanor cooler. Still, Raymond, ever trusting, chose not to question her about it. What he didn't realize was that Julia was caught in an emotional conflict, torn between her responsibilities at home and the reappearance of someone from her past. As she prepared for a long-awaited vacation with her sister, Raymond remained optimistic that the time apart might help revive their bond. On the morning of Sunday, October 3, 2010, while Julia and her sister waited for the airport shuttle, Raymond offered a cheerful goodbye. "Go enjoy yourself. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine." Julia responded with a grin, and Bethany, her sister, added with a smirk, "Just make sure this guy doesn't get into any trouble." Julia laughed and replied, "I'll be on my best behavior. You stay out of trouble too." "I'll see you in 2 weeks," she said, hesitating before adding, "Keep the house in one piece, okay? And please take care of yourself. I love you more than anything." She kissed him deeply before hurrying toward the waiting van. Bethany, already growing restless, called from the curb, "Come on! We've got a flight to catch." Julia mouthed a final phrase as she climbed into the vehicle, and Raymond responded with an exaggerated eye roll. "Love you too, babe," he said, waving. As the van drove off, he chuckled quietly to himself. At last, some quiet around here. With a spring in his step, he headed back inside, excited to begin a secret project he'd been planning in her absence. Over the coming days, he and their son, Matthew, would completely remodel the master bedroom, transforming it into the luxurious haven Julia had always wanted. This was to be Raymond's surprise gift for their 30th wedding anniversary. He called Matthew to set things in motion. There was a lot to do: painting, new carpet, and replacing all the old furniture. Everything needed to be ready before Julia returned from her Caribbean trip. Raymond started by clearing out the bedroom, moving the contents to the guest room. Once he'd relocated the dresser, nightstands, and wardrobe, it was time to tackle their 2 large walk-in closets. Both closets were crammed with decades' worth of accumulated belongings, thanks to both Raymond and Julia's tendency to keep sentimental and outdated items. From ancient gadgets to childhood keepsakes, the closets told the story of 30 shared years. Exhaling, Raymond stepped into his own closet and began the task. After about an hour, he had boxed up and moved all his items into the spare room. Then came Julia's closet, which loomed with the weight of its contents. Just then, Matthew arrived and announced, "Brought lunch," before tripping over a loose box. "Jesus," Raymond muttered, startled. "Next time knock. You nearly gave me a heart attack." Matthew handed him a sandwich and a can of soda. "My bad. Here." They sat in silence on the edge of the stripped-down bed, eating quietly for about 15 minutes. Once they finished, Raymond said, "I'll take care of the smaller stuff. You move the furniture to the guest room. Then we can load it all into the truck for goodwill." Matthew gave a short nod. "Got it." They turned their attention to Julia's closet next. Raymond sorted through her clothes and personal effects, while Matthew handled the heavier lifting. At one point, Matthew noticed a small beige suitcase tucked away on a high shelf. "What's this?" he asked. Raymond recognized it immediately. It was part of an old luggage set Julia had inherited from her late mother. He tried to open it, but the locks wouldn't budge. "Just put it with the rest for now," he said. 2 hours later, they had emptied the closet. After a short break, they disassembled the remaining furniture and carried it out to the garage. By evening, they were both worn out. Raymond handed Matthew some cash for pizza and told him to help himself to a beer from the fridge. Later that night, Matthew left to avoid getting on his wife Bianca's bad side, while Raymond straightened up and prepped the room for the next stage. He taped off the walls, patched holes, and sanded down surfaces until about 9 o'clock. Then he cracked open a beer and collapsed into his recliner, drifting off to sleep. Matthew was back promptly at 7 a.m. the next morning. They wolfed down some cereal before jumping back into the project. "Paint day," Raymond announced. "I'll take the top half of the walls. You handle the bottom. We're finishing this today, even if we're up all night." Matthew agreed, adding that Bianca would be at her mother's place the entire day. They painted for hours, only wrapping up late in the evening. That night, Raymond managed to grab a shower before settling into his recliner again with a cold beer. On the morning of Tuesday, October 5th, carpet installers arrived right on schedule at 6 a.m. With little to do but stay out of the way, Raymond had a quiet breakfast and watched as the crew worked efficiently. By 10, the new carpet was laid, and there were still a couple of hours before the furniture was set to arrive. With time to kill, Raymond returned to the boxes stacked in the spare room and eventually came across the same beige suitcase. Its unexpected heft caught his attention. Curious, he tried to pry open the latches with a paperclip, but just then, the doorbell rang. The new bedroom furniture had arrived. He showed the movers where everything should go and let them handle the rest. Once the furniture was in place, Raymond began slowly moving items back into the bedroom. By midnight, completely spent, he gave in and retired to his recliner with another beer in hand. By Wednesday, October 6th, Raymond allowed himself a bit of rest. He slept in and finally got up around 9 a.m. After loading the old furniture into his truck, he made a quick stop at Goodwill, then treated himself to breakfast at Denny's. That afternoon, he finished putting the room back together and hung a surprise banner over the bed. Just as he was getting ready to call it a day, he noticed a long, deep scratch in the freshly painted wall, about a foot in length. "Damn it," he muttered, tweaking the setup for a few more minutes. Once things felt just right, he decided it was time to clean up. First a shower, then dinner. While rinsing a paintbrush in the bathroom sink, it slipped through his fingers and hit a compact cosmetics case with a loud clack. Annoyed, he grabbed some turpentine and a rag, scrubbing at the fresh mark until the case looked untouched. His interest now piqued, Raymond went to the garage, pulled down a jar filled with random old keys, and after some trial and error, found one that clicked into place on the Samsonite. Back in the kitchen, he settled at the table and flipped the latches open. Inside, a thick manila envelope immediately caught his attention. It was sealed and addressed to Julia, postmarked September 15, 1991, from someone named A. Spencer in Seattle. Setting it aside, He reached in and pulled out a blue bikini, chuckling to himself at the thought of Julia ever wearing something so bold. But his smirk vanished when he uncovered what lay beneath. A photograph of Julia, lip-locked with an unfamiliar man, in what looked like a dinner party setting. Shock rolled through him. His hands trembled as he stared at the photo. Why would Julia be kissing someone else? The question echoed in his mind. A wave of nausea surged through him, sending him stumbling to the bathroom. After composing himself, he returned to the kitchen, now transfixed by the suitcase and its contents. The envelope, the bikini, and that photograph that threatened to shatter everything. He slowly took a seat again and began pulling out the rest. The same man kept reappearing, some shots posed, others alarmingly intimate. Among the photographs were vintage Polaroids. He found a white silk scarf carefully wrapped around a bundle of letters bound by red ribbon. All were addressed to Julia's workplace, dated from 1989 to 1991. He opened the top one, dated June 22, 1989. My dearest Julia, it read, it's only been a month, and already I miss you terribly. Your voice, your hands, your kisses, and most of all, lying next to you at night. I'll only contact you at work, just as you asked. No unnecessary risks. San Diego is everything I hoped for, but without you, it means nothing. I'm counting down the days. Forever yours, Tristan. Raymond bolted upright. Holy crap, he shouted, the weight of it all crashing down on him. Julia had been in a relationship with someone else. He let the letter fall from his hands, reeling with unanswered questions. Determined to make sense of the mess, he grabbed the suitcase and moved into the living room, muttering about Julia's pack-rat habits. Digging deeper, he uncovered a blue felt box containing a gold heart-shaped locket, one he recognized from a picture of Julia taken at a formal event. There were cocktail napkins with handwritten notes. One simply said, I love you. Another listed a phone number. An invitation to a 1990 awards ceremony, addressed to Dr. Tristan Donovan and guest. A dried red rose, matchbooks, hotel receipts, a California road map. Deeply personal items, like a black velvet sleep mask and a half-used tube of KY jelly, added a layer of intimacy that made his stomach turn. His mind was spinning as he finally turned his attention to the manila envelope. It held even more. Letters and photos, some graphic, some tender. Julia appeared frequently, sometimes alone, sometimes with Tristan. Swallowing his discomfort, Raymond forced himself to keep reading. These letters were from Julia this time, poured out in words thick with emotion and yearning. In one, she begged Tristan to come back from California. She wrote that she couldn't stand the thought of losing him. Her longing was raw, and it cut deep. The grief hit him full force. He let out a cry of pain, collapsed to his knees, and sobbed uncontrollably until exhaustion pulled him into unconsciousness. Thursday, October 7th, 2010. Julia stood on the deck of a cruise ship, frowning at her phone. Why can't I get a signal? She muttered. Her friend Bethany rolled her eyes and fired back. We're floating in the middle of nowhere, genius. Why are you so eager to call home anyway? Raymond is probably watching paint dry, Bethany teased. Try to have fun. Julia glared. You are such a pain sometimes, she snapped, before turning and walking away. Under her breath, she called Bethany a witch. At the ship's communications area, she attempted to call Raymond, but got no response. Disappointed, she sent him an email instead, updating him on the trip and Bethany's antics, before heading back to the pool, still frustrated that she couldn't reach him. Meanwhile, back home, Raymond came to on the living room floor, surrounded by the wreckage of Julia's hidden past. The betrayal still clung to him like smoke. After gathering himself and going through the motions of his morning routine, he found himself back in front of the evidence, overwhelmed. One photo caught his eye, a nude image of Julia from what he had once jokingly called her babe phase. His thoughts wandered back. They'd met in high school. Julia had never been the flashy type, but she had seen something special in Raymond. They stayed together through college and married soon after. He built a career in computer science. She worked as a lab technician. They bought a house, had a son, Matthew. Over time, Julia had reinvented herself. She lost weight, got a tan, updated her wardrobe. During that time, she radiated confidence and turned heads wherever they went. But she never strayed. She always chose Raymond. Eventually, though, the pressures of her job wore her down. Depression set in. Raymond had stepped up, balancing the household and raising Matthew. One evening, Julia broke down in tears, apologizing for forgetting his birthday. He just laughed it off, telling her to make it up to him that weekend. A little while later, she regained the weight, slipping back into her old patterns. But the love between them didn't falter. None of it had ever mattered to him. Whether she was radiant or weary, he thought she was beautiful. He cherished every version of her. Now, staring down at the pieces of a secret life he never saw coming, the old photo still in hand, he murmured, "This hurts like hell, but I have to know everything. If there's any hope left for us, I need to understand." He reached for another envelope. This one marked August 19th, 1989. My beloved Julia, the days we spent together last week are etched into my memory. I can still smell your perfume, still hear the sound of your laughter echoing in my ears. The flight home was unbearable. It felt as if I were being ripped away from the only thing that mattered. No stretch of miles could lessen the bond we share. That third night, so tender, so intimate, was the most meaningful moment of my life. I love you entirely, always and completely, Tristan. As Raymond read those words, a fierce ache pierced through him. He remembered when Julia had spoken to him like that, when those feelings had been meant for him. Now, someone else had taken his place in that part of her heart. His hands trembling, he tore open the next letter, dated August 21st, 1989. My dearest, it's taken days to recover from the emotions stirred by our brief reunion. I would relive it in an instant, despite the pain of parting. I wish we'd had more than one day. Still, what we had was unforgettable, and the depth of my love for you overwhelms me. I feel as though I'm suspended between two worlds, the one I've carefully built, and the one I glimpse when I'm with you. I need both, but I don't know how to keep either. I dread the thought of losing what we have, and yet I'm already losing myself. You have a place in my heart, and in my bed. Always, Julia. Raymond's voice escaped in a whisper, disbelief clinging to every word. She says she loves us both? Has she gone mad? Or have I been blind this whole time? Then a terrifying realization crept into his mind. Is Matthew even my son? Consumed by the need for answers, Raymond plunged into the rest of the letters. He paused occasionally, sometimes to pace the room, sometimes to gasp for breath, sometimes to weep in silence. As he delved further, more evidence surfaced. Faded receipts, matchbooks from out-of-town hotels, small keepsakes of secret meetings. The life he thought he knew was falling apart in front of him. As he began placing everything back into the old cosmetics case, something unusual caught his eye. A letter that had slipped between the layers. This one wasn't from Julia or Tristan. It was from a woman named Allison Spencer. Dear Julia, my name is Allison Spencer. I'm Tristan's sister. I found your letter while going through his things. I never imagined my brother could be involved in an affair, but your words made it clear how much you loved each other. Tristan died in a car accident last week. We buried him yesterday. Enclosed is a memorial card. I thought you should have one. I've been helping his wife, Eva, sort through his belongings. We're doing our best to make sure she never finds out about your relationship. If I discover anything else that might belong to you, I'll send it your way. But please, don't reach out again. And don't contact his family. I'm truly sorry for your loss. Allison. The paper was crumpled, the ink blurred by tears. Raymond finally understood. That month, Julia had been hollow, despondent, nearly unreachable. It was because the man she'd loved had just died. That was why she barely left the bed. That was why she'd forgotten his birthday. But one question burned in his chest. How could she love them both? You can't give your whole heart to two people. Loving both meant one of them had been living a lie. Her deception hadn't been brief or spontaneous. It had lasted years. She'd lied about work trips, invented conferences, even masked her true emotions. Raymond now saw the picture clearly. Julia and the married doctor had been entangled for over 3 years, likely starting when he began working at the hospital. They'd met in secret, at hotels, in her office, even after Tristan had moved to San Diego. They'd kept the affair going under the guise of professional visits. Staring blankly, Raymond realized how much time had passed. It was already 10 o'clock at night. He'd spent the entire day adrift in sorrow and stunned reflection. Needing air, he stepped outside into the cool night, leaving the front door ajar behind him. The next morning, another voicemail greeted him. "Raymond, it's me. I called yesterday too. I miss you. I love you. Please be there tonight, or I may not come back after this cruise." Standing in the hallway, he let the message wash over him. "She loves me," he muttered bitterly. Liar. He stumbled to the bathroom, her voice echoing in his mind. In his thoughts, he replied, "I love you too, you faithless liar. But your words mean nothing now. I need clarity," he thought, gripping the edge of the sink. Gazing at his reflection, he barely recognized the man staring back. "You look like hell," he said aloud. "Shower, eat, then think." After cleansing away the grime of despair and shaving the stubble from his jaw, he made himself a bowl of cereal and sat down with resolve. An hour later, he had a rough plan, and at the top of the list, find out if Matthew is really my son. He ordered a home DNA testing kit with next-day shipping. With Julia returning in a week, he focused on staying occupied, anything to stop the spiral of pain. Meanwhile, Julia's anxiety was mounting. She left messages for both Raymond and Matthew, pleading for updates and urging her son to check in on his father. "I hope everything's okay," she thought, a pit of worry growing in her stomach. The following day, Matthew begrudgingly made the trip, irritated at being sent as a go-between. He banged on the front door until he heard Raymond's voice call from the backyard. He was trimming branches. Sighing, Matthew handed over a bottle of water and gathered the mail. Among the envelopes sat the DNA kit. Raymond, claiming he needed help with a flu study, coaxed Matthew into participating, no questions asked. After collecting the sample, Matthew reminded him to call Julia and left. Raymond sealed the envelope, set it aside for mailing on Monday, and then threw himself into chores, scrubbing floors, purging closets, anything to keep his mind from circling the drain. That night, he rewarded himself with pizza and a few beers. On Sunday, he finally left Julia a voicemail. He was safe, and he'd call her the next day. Then he wandered the park for hours, watching ducks ripple through the water and families laugh in the fading sunlight. The world kept turning, indifferent to the collapse of his own. Monday, October 11th, arrived. Raymond resumed his routine, but made 2 significant choices. He mailed the DNA kit, and he visited Human Resources, handing in the forms for immediate retirement, something he'd once promised to do only when Julia retired too. Raymond's plans had come apart. He informed his boss of his decision to take time off and requested a 2-week leave. Before signing out for good, he phoned Logan Price, his longtime friend and legal counsel, and arranged to meet at 1 p.m. Logan agreed, and Raymond began mentally preparing for the conversation that would shape his future. An hour later, after a few brief goodbyes, Raymond concluded his 30-year career with the county, his life's work reduced to 2 simple boxes. His next destination was the bank. There, he set up a new checking account in his name and overhauled his financial situation. He retrieved his passport and other essential records from the safety deposit box. With help from the staff, He secured a new credit card and ensured all financial connections with Julia were severed. He paid off the balance on their joint card. At the insurance office, he designated Matthew as the sole recipient of his life insurance policy, removing Julia, and modified his auto coverage to reflect his separation. That afternoon, Raymond arrived at Logan's office. Logan greeted him with a joke about how rarely they saw each other, but it didn't take long for him to sense that something was wrong. Raymond asked how long it would take to begin divorce proceedings, and then admitted Julia had been unfaithful. Logan was caught off guard. He hadn't suspected a thing, but Raymond was resolute. He was ready to move forward. Logan advised at least having a talk with Julia, possibly even attending counseling together, but Raymond was unmoved. Logan, respecting his role as Raymond's attorney, agreed to start the legal paperwork. He suggested a fair split of assets. Raymond also instructed him to revise his will. Julia was to be excluded entirely, with everything going to Matthew. Logan repeated his suggestion to confront Julia first, but Raymond refused. He said he needed distance and time to think, and that he would reach out once he'd settled elsewhere. That night, unable to sleep in the bedroom that now felt foreign to him, Raymond sat alone in a recliner, gazing into the darkness, wondering what the future held. By Tuesday, October 12, 2010, Julia had left another voicemail, which Raymond ignored. He was focused on finishing up the last tasks before her return. He planned to be gone by then. By Wednesday the 13th, his new credit card had arrived, and his banking changes were finalized. He reached out to Logan for a status update on the divorce paperwork, but Logan stalled, secretly hoping Raymond might have a change of heart. Raymond provided a new landline number for emergencies, emphasizing that Julia was not to receive it under any circumstances. That entire day was devoted to tying up remaining details. Though he was disappointed that the DNA test results hadn't arrived yet, Raymond quietly departed at 9 p.m., leaving behind his house and the life he once knew. On Thursday, October 14th, Julia, increasingly uneasy, phoned their son. "Matthew, can you go check on your dad? I haven't heard a word from him. Let me know as soon as you find out anything. I have to talk to him before I get back tomorrow, and someone still needs to pick us up at the airport." Half asleep beside his girlfriend Bianca, Matthew mumbled, "Sure, Mom, I'll call you after I see him." Then, without another word, he let the phone fall and drifted back into sleep. By Friday morning, October 15th, Julia and her sister Bethany had returned from their trip. "Wake up," Julia whispered, nudging Bethany as their shuttle pulled into the driveway. "Let me sleep until we get to my place," Bethany groaned, turning away. Julia tipped the driver, lugged her bags inside, and called out, "Raymond, I'm back. Where are you?" Silence. She stepped into the kitchen, expecting to find a note. There was none. She opened the back door and called again, still no response. Figuring he'd gone to the airport to pick them up, she dialed his phone. It rang a few feet away on the kitchen counter. He'd forgotten it again. She shook her head, slightly amused. Typical. Heading upstairs to unpack, she opened the bedroom door and froze. The room had been completely redone. Above the bed hung a banner that read, "Surprise." It was exactly what she had imagined. "Oh, Raymond, you incredible man," she thought with a smile. "You really went all out." She admired the new furnishings and decor, touched by the effort. But then her eyes landed on the banner again, and her breath caught. Pinned to it was a photograph. Her and Tristan, taken at the Chicago Awards ceremony. Across her face, someone had scrawled a number in black ink. Her happiness vanished. "No, please no," she murmured. Panicked, she searched for her cosmetics case. It was missing. She tore through drawers and closets, growing frantic. The truth dawned on her. Raymond had found it. She collapsed onto the bed, weeping. One by one, she called Matthew, Bethany, and a few friends, desperate for answers. No one knew where Raymond had gone. Her world had shattered, and she feared he was lost to her forever. An hour passed. She kept making calls, still with no results. Eventually, Bethany arrived, trying to reassure her. "He probably just needed to blow off some steam," she said gently. "Maybe he's with a friend watching a game or something?" But Julia only grew more distressed. She couldn't bring herself to admit the affair with Tristan. Deep down, she was sure Raymond had discovered everything and walked out for good. She asked Bethany to leave, promising she'd call if she heard anything. Saturday, October 16th came. Julia spent the entire day crying, overcome by fear and guilt. Bethany suggested they contact the police. When Julia finally did, the dispatcher explained that she would have to wait 24 hours before reporting him missing. She also called local hospitals. There was no record of him, which offered a momentary sense of relief, but the dread remained. Sunday arrived, and still no word. Julia remained in bed, consumed by sorrow, clutching her pillow as if it could answer her prayers. "Please, God," she whispered, "let him be okay. Just let me hear his voice again. I love him. I can't live without him." Then came Monday. Julia reports Raymond as missing, filling out the necessary paperwork at the local precinct. A patrol officer soon arrives to collect a photograph and relevant details, assuring her with little conviction, "We'll reach out if there's any news." Julia's stomach turns. She hears not hope in those words, but a grim possibility. They'll only call if they find his body. Later that evening, she notices a courier envelope addressed to Raymond. Desperate for any sign, she tears it open. Inside, she finds correspondence from a genetic testing company confirming Raymond is biologically related to Matthew. The implication is immediate and jarring. Raymond must have doubted that Matthew was his son, possibly believing Tristan was the real father. But that timeline doesn't even make sense, Julia thinks bitterly. Tristan hadn't entered the picture until well after Matthew's birth. Then she notices another detail. A duplicate of the results had been sent to Logan Price, the family's attorney. She wastes no time dialing his number. Logan answers, and after a long pause, admits that Raymond had confided in him. He tells Julia that Raymond discovered something in her makeup bag that deeply upset him, and that he'd been emotionally unraveling. Logan explains Raymond asked him to prepare divorce papers, though he hadn't signed them. Julia pleads for any clue about where Raymond might be, but Logan claims he doesn't know. He does, however, promise to let her know if that changes. After the call ends, Julia collapses in grief, sobbing and praying for Raymond's return. 10 days drag by. Julia grows increasingly frantic. Then Matthew lets slip that his father is at Aunt Margaret's cottage by the lake. Julia jumps into the car and drives straight there. She finds Raymond sitting alone on the dock, gaunt and expressionless, gazing out at the water. She says nothing, just lowers herself beside him. He gives no sign he notices. She reaches for his cold hand and starts to speak. "Raymond, I have to tell you something," she says quietly. "I'll answer any question you ask. Just, please, listen." Raymond remains silent, but Julia goes on. She tells him the story of how she met Tristan. It happened at the hospital's daycare center during Matthew's 3rd birthday celebration. Tristan, who had a daughter born on the same day, had shown up by mistake. They laughed over the confusion and began chatting, first about their children, then about themselves. Tristan, a young doctor overwhelmed by his new responsibilities, started joining her for lunch breaks. Their conversations became a daily ritual. Over time, they confided more, and Tristan encouraged her to join Weight Watchers. As she began to transform physically and emotionally, he became a source of admiration and validation. Then came the dinner invitation. That night, she realized she had feelings for him. They both acknowledged the emotional connection, but agreed not to cross any lines. Still, they started holding hands. Eventually, Tristan kissed her, and the feeling took her back to the way Raymond had made her feel in the beginning. Not long after, they shared a dinner at the Marriott, where they rented a room and slept together for the first time. Julia admits that she didn't stop seeing Tristan. She was torn, caught in the impossible bind of loving two men, unsure how to let either one go. Without a word, Raymond stands and walks to the house. Julia follows, heart pounding, but finds the doors locked. The sun dips low and the temperature drops. She returns to her car and sits, unwilling to leave him alone again. At sunrise, the rumble of a boat engine wakes her. She opens her eyes to see Raymond drifting into the lake in a small boat. Her breath catches as he rises, then suddenly collapses into the water. Panic overtakes her. She knows he can't swim. She screams for help, and a neighbor rushes out with a boat of his own. Julia watches in frozen terror as Raymond is pulled from the water. Back at the cottage, they dry him off and lay him in bed. After the neighbor leaves, Julia tends to him in silence, cleaning him up, dressing him warmly, shaving his face. She remains by his side as he sleeps. 2 hours pass. Raymond stirs, then slowly rises and walks to the kitchen. For the first time in days, he looks at Julia. Tears well in his eyes. After struggling to find words, he finally speaks. "Do you remember Cassandra?" he asks. "The girl I dated for a year? She dumped me over the phone, said she'd met someone else. I went to her house anyway. They were waiting outside. Her new guy laughed in my face. I walked away humiliated." He pauses, visibly shaken. "I ran into that guy later. I had a pool cue in my trunk. I was ready to smash his face in. But this older guy, Leonard, who lived nearby, stopped me, told me no woman was worth throwing my life away for. I believed him, until I met you. You're worth everything, even dying for." Raymond wipes his face with trembling hands. "While I was out there on the lake, I thought about all of that. And I realized dying over what you did. That's not right. I want to live. I want to understand." He rests his head on the table. Julia walks over and wraps her arms around him. They cry quietly, clinging to one another. After a long pause, Raymond lifts his head and whispers, "Let's go home." 2 months pass. Life under the same roof is strained and hollow. They sleep in separate rooms. Raymond is withdrawn, and Julia lives in constant fear that the distance between them is permanent. Matthew visits only occasionally. On weekends, Raymond retreats to the lake, while Julia stays behind, afraid he might try to hurt himself again. Today is Matthew's birthday. The family is gathered around cake and presents. When it's Raymond's turn to give his gift, he steps out of the room and returns carrying 2 objects: Julia's cosmetic bag and the envelope with the DNA results. He places them on the table in front of everyone. Julia's face drains of color. She has no idea what he's about to say. Raymond's tone is calm and controlled as he faces Matthew. "Your mother has something she needs to say," he begins. "It's going to be hard to hear, but you need to listen." Without another word, he slips quietly out the front door. Julia, overwhelmed by emotion, bursts into tears and rushes out of the room. Matthew and his wife Bianca start to follow, hoping to comfort her, but all they can do is stand outside the bedroom, listening to the sound of her sobbing behind the closed door. Almost 60 minutes pass before Julia comes back downstairs, now composed enough to speak. She begins recounting her past with Tristan to Matthew. As the clock strikes midnight, Raymond returns. He gently tells Matthew, "It's time for you to head home. I'll take it from here." Once they're gone, Raymond hands Julia a small business card. On it is the name, Dr. Jenna Baxter, marriage counselor. The appointment is set for Tuesday at 6 p.m. There are no further words between them. Raymond walks upstairs and goes to bed. That same Tuesday, Dr. Baxter is preparing for her initial session with the Aldridge. As she scans through her notes, she reflects to herself, "This won't be straightforward. It may look like a typical affair from the outside, but something deeper is going on here. I just hope I can help them find their way through it." When Julia and Raymond arrive, Dr. Baxter greets them kindly. Please have a seat, she says, gesturing toward the sofa. Looking at Julia, she explains, I specialize in working with couples affected by infidelity. My job is to uncover the root causes that brought you here and help you understand them, together. Sometimes couples reconcile, other times they separate. Either outcome, we work through the process together. She continues, I won't give you quick solutions. What I do offer is honesty. That's the cornerstone of this work. I'll guide your conversations, step in when needed, and I won't avoid difficult truths. Some of it will be painful to hear, and some of it might help things make sense. Either way, you'll face it side by side. Dr. Baxter then explains how the sessions will unfold. Starting next time, I'll meet with each of you individually to understand your viewpoints. When we meet as a couple, I want you to reflect afterward, but save those thoughts until you're back here. Don't bring up new arguments at home. And if things get too heated, press pause and wait until we're together again. Any questions? Both Julia and Raymond silently shake their heads. Good. Then let's begin. The session moves quickly, and soon they're walking out in silence. Back home, Julia is the first to speak. How do you want to approach this? Maybe we sit in the living room for an hour tonight, open up a bottle of wine and talk. She gives a small, tentative smile. I'll probably need tissues. Raymond gives a slight nod but offers an adjustment. Let's skip the wine. Just water or soda. I don't want anything to dull what we need to feel. And let's put our phones away. I want us to give this our full attention. Julia agrees, takes their phones, and returns. They sit quietly, searching for where to start. Finally, Raymond breaks the silence. Earlier, you said you've always been happy with me. But how can that be true, Julia? You had someone else right after we got married. He pauses, searching her face. Didn't I give you what you needed? What was missing? Julia immediately interrupts. Dr. Baxter told us to stay focused on what came up in the session. This conversation should be about us, not anyone else right now. But I need to say this, she adds. I've loved you, Raymond, since the beginning. I've never stopped. Our marriage has always meant everything to me. If I ever lost you, I don't know how I'd survive. That's the truth. Raymond lets out a long breath. You're right. I got ahead of myself again. You know how impatient I can be. I thought what we had was solid. We had our arguments, sure, but I never once questioned us. I never looked at anyone else. You were always my home. His voice grows heavier. But now, everything I believed about us feels broken. When I look at you, all I can see are those letters. I imagine things I wish I didn't. Julia reaches over gently. Not now, Raymond. We promised to leave those details for later. All right, he replies, his voice tightening. But I have to ask, was there anyone else? Should I be preparing myself for more revelations? How many others have there been while we were supposedly happy? Julia's tone sharpens. Is that what you think? There's only been 2 people in my life, you and Tristan. That's it. Are you accusing me of more? Raymond's anger rises. You kept Tristan a secret for years. How can I trust that there isn't more you're hiding? Julia answers with firm conviction. There hasn't been anyone else, but this kind of talk belongs in our sessions. No, Raymond snaps back. I can't keep living like this, constantly doubting everything. If we can't talk now, what's the point? I'm done. He storms off, slamming the bedroom door behind him. Julia stays seated in the dimly lit living room, softly muttering to herself. That went badly. A month later, after yet another therapy appointment, they drive home in tense silence. Neither speaks until they walk through the door. Once inside, Julia turns toward him. You never told me you read all of the letters, she says quietly. I didn't think it mattered at the time, Raymond replies, his voice distant and flat. I was consumed by guilt and fury, choosing to hide everything from you instead of being truthful. I didn't stop to consider how much pain those letters might cause. I regret that more than words can express, Raymond. I know I can't erase the past, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild us. I still love you. I want to find our way back. Raymond lets out a long breath. Julia, my feelings for you never disappeared, not even in the worst moments. But the hardest part is what plays over and over in my head, images of you with him. I can't shake them. They make me feel sick to my core. It's like I'm coming apart inside. I don't think you can truly understand how deep that cuts. Raymond, that's something we should bring up with Dr. Baxter. Those persistent thoughts and how to manage them, Julia says gently. But for now, can we try to reconnect? Just us? Maybe a short trip, somewhere quiet, the mountains maybe. No phones, no distractions, just you and me. She searches his face, hopeful. Raymond pauses, uncertain. I'm still uneasy around you, but maybe this is what we need. All right, he says cautiously. Let's try it. Just don't leave anything sharp lying around, he adds with a faint smile, and for the first time in a long while, they both share a small laugh. 2 weeks later, during the drive home, Julia fidgets with her seatbelt before finally speaking. Raymond, can I ask you something? When you said my babe period, what did you mean by that? I don't want to go there, Raymond responds curtly. Why not? Because it still hurts. I'd rather leave it alone. I just don't understand. What was so painful about that time? He hesitates, then begins slowly. That phase, when you joined Weight Watchers, lost the weight, started tanning, getting manicures, dressing more provocatively. You were different. You weren't the warm, soft woman I married anymore. You turned into someone new, a babe. He sighs heavily. And men noticed. Part of me felt proud, sure, but mostly I was scared. Scared someone else would take you away from me. And then when you got sick and returned to how you used to be, I felt safe again. I loved you through all of it. But realizing that you hadn't changed for me, you'd done it for someone else, that's what shattered me. It poisoned the memory. Julia barely breathes out. Oh God, how could you believe that? Without a word, Raymond rises from his seat and quietly heads to the bedroom. 8 weeks later, after another grueling session with Dr. Baxter, they sit in silence on the living room couch. Eventually, Raymond speaks. I still can't wrap my head around it. She said it's possible to love more than one person at the same time, but it sounds like nonsense. Julia responds softly. What she meant is that people can carry love for more than one person, even at the same time. It doesn't mean it's fair. It usually ends in pain for someone. That's what happened to us. The sequential idea is when people fall in love again after a loss. That happens a lot. I get the theory, Raymond mutters, but not the emotion. I can't imagine loving someone else without it taking something away from the love I have for you. Julia nods. It's not easy for me either. But when I was with you, you were my whole world. And with Tristan, he was too. It was like something inside flipped. I loved both of you, fully, but in different ways. Raymond slowly nods again. We've got a lot more to work through, he says. Maybe next time we come prepared, with some questions. Without saying more, they head off to their separate bedrooms, the silence thick with everything still unsaid. 6 weeks later, Julia's tears come less frequently. Sitting side by side again, Raymond begins, his tone quieter than usual. I owe you an apology. I didn't mean what I said. Or maybe I did, but not the way it came out. When I said I was glad he died, it wasn't because I wanted him gone. I just meant I didn't have to compete anymore. He turns his gaze away. I didn't understand until Dr. Baxter pointed it out. That his death was like losing me for you. You were grieving alone, because telling me would have meant losing me too. Now I see why it was so overwhelming for you. If it had been you who died, I would have been destroyed. I know you didn't say it to be cruel, Julia replies, her voice trembling. But God, Raymond, you've been so fixated on how I could love both of you, and yet you couldn't see how losing one of you would devastate me. She pauses, then adds, I loved him. When he died, it felt like I died too. I mourned him the way I would mourn you if something happened. That pain hasn't faded. If you'd drowned in that lake, she says in a near whisper, I don't think I would have made it either. Do you see it now? Raymond lowers his eyes, ashamed. I think I'm beginning to. I didn't mean to be so unfeeling. I guess I've been selfish in my own way. He continues slowly. I didn't expect this, but when we started talking about Tristan again, all those old wounds reopened. I hadn't thought of him in years, but now, his face is vivid, and it hurts more than I thought it would. Now that I finally know the full story, it's like I'm reliving all the pain. Maybe Dr. Baxter can help guide us through that next session, he offers. Julia nods gently. Yeah. But first, she says with a weary smile, how about pouring me a glass of wine before you head to bed? I just need a minute to myself. Raymond picks up a bottle of wine, lowers the lights in the living room, and heads upstairs. As he reaches the top of the staircase, a soft sob rises from below. Without a word, he closes the bedroom door behind him. 2 months later, Julia finally lets the dam break. I can't even look at you tonight. I'm furious. I feel like I could scream, she says. You were seriously planning to file for divorce without even talking to me first? What were you thinking? We've always talked about everything. Everything, since the day we got married. And now, when everything's on the line, you just shut me out? Her voice lands like a slap. What the hell were you thinking? She says, and then turns away. I'm going to bed. This time, it's Raymond left in the dark. He cracks open a beer, he's never liked wine much anyway, and sits with it, alone. The following morning, the rich scent of fresh coffee jolts him awake like a medical shock. That's what hits him first. He opens one eye and sees the ceiling above the living room couch. The smell is still strong. He opens the other eye and turns toward the kitchen. A woman in a robe stands there, holding a steaming mug. Breakfast is almost ready. Go clean up, Julia says matter-of-factly. It's her, of course. Julia. Even now, after all these years, Raymond still sees something in her that stops him. Warmth, honesty, a quiet radiance that shakes something loose inside him. His heart picks up speed, and it's not because of the coffee. He swings his legs off the couch, accidentally knocking over an empty beer bottle. In the bathroom, he uses the toilet, splashes his face with cold water, and glances at the mirror. Bloodshot eyes. A deep crease from the cushion etched into his cheek. Not a great look. Still, he heads downstairs. The food is incredible, and more importantly, he didn't have to make it. After they finish, he leans back and takes a good look at Julia. Her eyes are puffy, too. I'm sorry, she says gently. I'm trying, really trying, to understand your side. Maybe that's something we should bring up next week with Dr. Baxter. Raymond smiles for the first time in a while. It's okay. I've been struggling with that too. I say things sometimes without thinking how they'll hit you. I'm sorry for that. He pauses. Can we talk now? Julia raises an eyebrow. Wait. Why aren't you at work? I took the day off, Raymond replies. This matters more than anything going on at the lab. They'll survive without me today. An hour later, they're sitting outside, coffee in hand, with the sky open above them. Why did you ask Logan to prepare divorce papers? Julia asks. I was a wreck, Raymond says. I couldn't think clearly. All I could feel was betrayal, and I just wanted to sever everything before it got worse. I've always believed that if someone cheats once, they'll do it again. I didn't want to go through that pain twice. But why didn't you talk to me first? Julia presses. Maybe we could have saved something. I know, he says quietly. I was terrified I'd say something I couldn't take back, and I didn't think I'd be able to understand anything you said through all the hurt. To be honest, I wanted you to hurt too. I thought it might help. It didn't. Julia exhales slowly. That weirdly makes sense. I had some awful thoughts too. We need help untangling all of this. We can't let things fester or stay buried. We need to move carefully, with intention. Then Raymond adds, Mind if I ask something a little off the subject? Go ahead, Julia says. Ask. Did you ever think about leaving me for him? Never, she answers. I never stopped loving you, not even for a second. I never saw a future without you in it. You've always been my home. I loved both of you, she continues. We haven't sorted that part out yet. But I knew giving up either of you would have torn me apart. It already did. That wound is still open. I don't know if it'll ever fully close. Maybe it's one of those scars you just learned to carry. But hearing that you know I never wanted to leave, that means a lot. I get it, Raymond says, giving a sad smile. I've been there too. He stretches his legs out in front of him. Now shut up and soak in some sun. You're looking like a ghost. The sunlight wraps around them, and for the first time in a long while, they sit in a kind of tentative peace. Weeks later, after a therapy session, Raymond says, Wow, that really hit me. Should we talk about it now or sleep on it? He asks. I'd rather talk, Julia says, her voice tired but steady. Even if it's hard, I don't want to carry it into tomorrow. Opening up about everything, especially when it comes to Tristan, has never been something I've handled well. Even just saying his name out loud feels like a burden. I'm running on empty emotionally. But if you're still willing to talk, I'm not going to shut down. Just, tonight, I might need something stronger than cola to get me through. Relax for a bit. I'll grab us something to drink, Raymond says. He soon returns with a glass of wine for Julia and a soda for himself. As he walks back in, he sees Julia stretched out on the couch, her head leaned back, eyes closed. For a brief moment, he thinks about just pulling a blanket over her and calling it a night. But then she opens her eyes and flashes that lopsided smile he's known since their teenage years. All right, honey, she murmurs. So, Julia says, where do we even begin? I don't know, Raymond admits. Maybe start by telling me what you meant when you said he changed your world in a way I didn't. I always thought our sex life was good, great even. I figured I gave you that. Was I wrong? It's not about who was better, Julia replies slowly. What we had was deep and intimate, but it became familiar. After Matthew was born, we kind of stopped pushing the envelope. We found our rhythm and stuck to it, not because we were tired of each other, but because it felt right. She pauses before continuing. We didn't need to go exploring anymore. We were content with what we had. But with Tristan, it was like discovering everything all over again. There were new sparks, new interests. Not necessarily better, just not the same. Raymond's voice is tight. So, you tried things with him that we never did? Julia shakes her head gently. Not quite. You and I explored everything we wanted to. But Tristan and I connected through different preferences. It was its own kind of chemistry. Raymond's reply carries a sharp undertone. Right. I read about that. Thanks for the reminder. I'm not trying to hurt you, Julia says softly. I'm just trying to be truthful. That's how we heal. Tristan and I had a specific connection. It wasn't a competition, and I never kept anything from you. If you'd wanted to try something adventurous, like public stuff, I probably would have gone for it too, because it was with you. Raymond exhales, the pain evident. I guess I sort of get it now, but it's not easy. That image of you with him, it's burned into me. Every time I look at you, it flashes back. I never meant for those thoughts to haunt you, she says quietly. This honesty, it hurts me too. But it's part of how we move forward. Raymond nods slowly. It's going to be a long journey. I know, Julia says, her voice steady. But I'm here. I'm not leaving. We'll take it step by step. I love you. That hasn't changed. 6 weeks later, Dr. Baxter flips through her schedule and smiles to herself. The Aldridge are next. Today's session has something different in store. Hopefully they're ready. When Raymond and Julia walk into the office hand in hand, speaking in hushed tones, Dr. Baxter takes it as an encouraging sign. They take their usual spots on the couch and she begins, "How are you both feeling today? Unless there's any lingering tension from our last session, I'd love to hear what's been on your minds. Raymond, I know how difficult it's been to let go of those intrusive images. They don't just disappear." She gives them a moment, then continues. "But communication is key, especially when emotions run high. You've both come a long way." "I think so," Raymond replies, cautiously hopeful. "This past weekend was awkward," Julia admits. "We knew what to expect, but the weight of everything still lingers. We're learning how to walk around the pain, not stumble through it." She turns to Raymond with quiet determination. "We're improving. I promise. I love you. I'm ready to do anything it takes to win back your trust. I want you back, not just in our home, but fully, in every sense. I've missed you so much." Raymond gives a slow, measured nod. There are still some ghosts hanging around. Dr. Baxter waits, then delivers the news. "Today will be our last session together. You've made remarkable progress. It's time to keep moving forward, just the two of you. I'm always here if you need a check-in, but the rest of this journey is yours now. You've peeled back layers, on yourselves and each other. Some truths were painful but necessary." Raymond turns to Julia, his tone steady but heavy with meaning. "Julia, I've always given you every part of my heart, all of it. But the truth is, you gave pieces of yours to someone else too, and I'm still trying to understand how to live with that. How can you say your heart was with us both? I'm the man you promised your future to, the one you gave your word to, vowing loyalty and devotion. That promise was meant to be sacred, but you broke it, and with that, shattered everything I trusted. Staying in this marriage now would mean accepting that I was never truly loved by the woman I called my wife. I didn't go searching, but the truth about you and Tristan came to light. You never once said you were unhappy. If you'd just been honest, if you had told me the truth, I would have let you leave. The pain would have been cleaner than this slow destruction. I still don't know what I lacked that made you turn to someone else. But this last year has been nothing but a series of wounds that never healed. The one person I gave everything to, the one I thought I could always trust, is the same person who tore me apart. That trust is gone. And now I'm terrified of what else I might learn if I keep digging. You're not mine alone anymore. Someone else holds space in your heart, and that knowledge is unbearable. I can't keep waking up beside someone who kept up a lie for so long, someone who let me believe in a love that wasn't even real. That fantasy has crumbled. I won't stay. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. We'll split everything down the middle, and then we'll part ways. I won't carry bitterness, because after this moment, I won't feel anything at all for you. You might try to stop the divorce, but I'm already gone. You gave up on us the moment you betrayed what we built, and now I'll do the same. It doesn't matter whether the court has signed the papers or not. I've already walked away in every way that matters. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, I'm no longer yours. Doctor, thank you for the therapy. As for what Julia thinks or feels now, it's irrelevant to me. Your services are paid for. My recovery is finished." He stands up, casting a glance toward Julia, whose cheeks are streaked with tears, but he says nothing. He steps outside, the air cool against his face. For the first time in what feels like forever, he takes a deep breath. He feels lighter. He feels free. A week later, Julia receives the divorce documents. Raymond has already claimed his share, leaving only the house unresolved. He moves into a condominium near his workplace. Julia reaches out, through texts, calls, anything, but Raymond never replies. Their son, hoping to mend the damage, asks Raymond what he would do in his shoes. If everything you thought was real turned out to be a lie, what would you do? His father doesn't respond with advice, just a question in return. And after that, the boy stops asking. 2 years go by. The divorce is finalized. Julia had tried every method, apologies, anger, pleading, but none of it reached Raymond. At his age, the idea of falling in love again seemed distant. But he found peace in the quiet companionship of his 3 German shepherds. With them, there were no doubts. Their love was simple, pure, and entirely his. That's the end of the first story. But ahead lies another full of surprises. Let's not waste a moment. A house husband is a man who stays behind to manage the household while his wife pursues her career. His daily duties encompass all the responsibilities once typically handled by stay-at-home wives, with the added burden of tasks like home repairs, car maintenance, and yard upkeep. Although his working wife might occasionally lend a hand with cooking or childcare, the overwhelming majority of chores rest squarely on his shoulders. I often reflect on whether I could have endured that arrangement if it had begun when our 3 children were toddlers. In those early years, we lived quite modestly, both holding full-time jobs just to sustain a middle-class standard of living, with daycare stepping in during work hours. When our kids entered their high school years, my wife seized the chance to pursue her MBA, courtesy of a tuition assistance program offered by her employer. This shift meant I had to absorb more of the domestic load as she balanced a demanding job with a rigorous mix of online coursework and in-person classes. I didn't harbor any resentment. I fully supported her ambition, knowing her advancement would bring long-term benefits for the entire family. Since the program was geared toward working professionals, completing it took her nearly 3 years. By the time she finally walked across that graduation stage, our children were already getting ready to head off to college. Fortunately, all 3 of our kids performed exceptionally well in school and secured scholarships, easing some of the enormous financial pressure. Still, the costs associated with sending 3 children to college at once were staggering. At the time, I worked as the head of the accounting department at a small family-owned manufacturing business. While my pay was decent, it didn't compare to the salaries of accountants in large corporations. Thankfully, Amy's hard work paid dividends. She was promoted to executive vice president of product development at the multinational insurance company she had been loyal to for over 15 years. With her promotion came a generous salary boost, the perks of a company vehicle, an expense account, and eligibility for sizable annual bonuses. This financial windfall arrived just in time. The economy soon took a sharp downturn, and my company was hit particularly hard. After months of struggling, they eventually sold the business to a bigger competitor. The new corporate owners wasted no time in shuttering our facility and consolidating operations. They offered me a transfer position at another plant, but it was located 300 miles away and came with a much lower salary, roughly a third of Amy's base pay, even before counting her bonuses. Reluctantly, I declined the offer, and just like that, I found myself unemployed. I immediately started sending out resumes and reaching out to my network, only to quickly realize that the local job market had completely dried up amid the economic slump. "John, this isn't the end of the world," Amy said, trying to soothe my worries. "We're in good shape financially, and the kids' tuition is covered. You don't need to stress yourself out." "I know," I conceded, "but I've spent my whole life working. I'm not sure I know how to just do nothing." "You won't be doing nothing," she teased with a laugh. "I've kept a list over the years of all the little projects you never had time for. Trust me, you'll have plenty to keep you busy." And that's how my new chapter began. At 48 years old, I officially took on the title of house husband. Amy's backlog of home improvement projects was impressively long, and it took me almost a year to check off every item. No sooner had I finished the renovations than she handed me a fresh list, this time filled with heavy-duty landscaping tasks. As I threw myself into the endless home and yard work, Amy continued climbing the corporate ladder. She was soon promoted to Senior Executive Vice President, accompanied by another sizable raise. She genuinely loved her work and had earned widespread respect among the city's business leaders. Invitations to galas, corporate functions, and exclusive networking events became routine, and I was expected to accompany her. At some point, though I can't pinpoint exactly when, I noticed a subtle but unsettling change in the way Amy treated me during these events. In the beginning, she clung closely to me while she briefly greeted her peers. Gradually, though, she began encouraging me to hang back at the table or nurse a drink by the bar while she worked the room. Before long, I found myself spending most of these evenings chatting idly with other executives' spouses or sitting alone, nursing a glass of wine. The real breaking point came during a lavish weekend retreat at a luxury resort. On the very first evening, Amy parked me with the wives and then vanished for nearly 3 hours. The next morning, she casually informed me that she had a full schedule of meetings lined up with senior executives and board members, while the wives had organized a spa day. "All right," I said, trying to stay calm. "But what am I supposed to do while everyone's off getting massages?" "I don't know, John. Take a hike. Relax. I have important work to do. I can't be your entertainment committee," she snapped. I swallowed my irritation, reminding myself of the enormous pressure she was under. But privately, I vowed this would be the last corporate retreat I allowed myself to be dragged to. "Fine. Don't worry about me," I replied. "I'll find something to do." I spent the day lounging by the pool and later wandered over to a small tiki bar for a couple of gin and tonics. That's when I noticed a gathering of people out on the terrace of one of the conference rooms. Beneath wide sun umbrellas, I spotted Amy sitting with a tall, distinguished man. He placed his hand lightly on the small of her back, guiding her toward a secluded table. They slid their chairs close together, and before long he draped an arm casually around her shoulders while she leaned into him with easy familiarity. No one nearby seemed the least bit surprised by the intimacy. I watched, sick at heart, as she kissed his cheek several times and laughed at something he whispered to her, giving him a playful slap on the arm. They lingered like that for nearly half an hour before finally returning inside. I couldn't shake the scene from my mind. Their public closeness was far beyond what would be considered appropriate between married co-workers. The ease with which they acted, completely unconcerned about being seen, only deepened my unease about what might be happening behind closed doors. Although I had met most of Amy's colleagues over the years, this man was a stranger to me. I strongly suspected he was a board member, and I was determined to find out. I returned to our suite, set on grabbing my laptop to dig deeper into what was bothering me. Within minutes, I uncovered a photograph of Stephen Swanson, the chairman of Mega Insurance Corporation. He was married to Margot Davis Swanson, none other than the daughter of William Davis, the founder and former chairman of Mega Insit Corporation. That link was a major red flag. If anything questionable was happening, Amy was playing a very dangerous game. Stephen had clearly married into power. Margot's father still held the majority of the company's shares. Later that night, Amy sat next to me at dinner, laughing and chatting easily with a few other EVPs, seeming entirely at ease. Meanwhile, I struck up a conversation with Diane, a sophisticated woman seated nearby. I found myself genuinely enjoying her sharp humor and quick wit. Talking to Diane was a refreshing break. After the meal, the lights dimmed and the band began to play. Amy leaned toward me briefly, whispering that she was going to dance with a few colleagues. It was the first thing she had said directly to me all evening. Without waiting for a reply, she rose and crossed the room to the dance floor with another man. Diane turned toward me and said with a knowing smile, "You better get used to it. At these functions, spouses are often left to fend for themselves." She chuckled, adding, "I can't believe your husband left you alone among all these corporate sharks." Then she laughed again. "Mine's probably out there charming the wife of some board member right now." With a mischievous glint in her eye, she continued, "He figures a few mid-level execs might ask me to dance while I spend the night singing his praises to anyone who'll listen. Anyway, before someone else grabs me, would you do me the honor of a dance?" She laughed once more. "You're about 20 years younger than the guys I usually dance with, so behave yourself." We danced for a short while, but our time was cut short when her husband swooped in, only to promptly pass her off to his boss. It was obvious he wanted her to impress someone higher up. Left on my own once again, I sat and watched Amy glide across the floor with various board members until she eventually gravitated towards Stephen Swanson. After several songs, the band took a break, and Amy trailed behind Swanson to his table. I considered heading back to the room, but decided to stick around a bit longer. Eventually, Amy noticed me sitting alone and made her way back to our table. "You must be getting terribly bored, John," she said lightly. "Why don't you go back to the room? I'll join you once I finish working the room." "The band's incredible," I said. "I was hoping for at least one dance with my beautiful wife. Think you can spare me a few minutes?" "John, this is business," she replied dismissively, waving her hand as if brushing me off. "Please, just go like I asked. We'll talk later." Without waiting for my reaction, she turned and disappeared back into the crowd. I sat there stunned, watching her go. She had essentially dismissed me like an unruly child. Fury burned inside me, but sitting there any longer, humiliated, wasn't an option. After a few more minutes, I got up and left the hall. I wasn't ready to sit alone in our suite either, so I wandered into the small bar off the lobby. The bar was nearly empty, offering a quiet place to clear my head. One thing was certain. Amy was either already entangled with Swanson or was dangerously close to it. I wasn't going to accept that without proof. I nursed a drink, then decided to call it a night. Passing by the event hall on my way upstairs, I couldn't resist a glance inside. There was Amy, pressed closely against Swanson as they danced. His hand rested low on her back, almost too low. I asked a nearby staffer when the band was scheduled to finish. He told me they wrapped up at 11 and the room would close by midnight. Later, back in our suite, I must have dozed off watching TV. When I next looked at the clock, it was 1:20 a.m. That's when I heard the door open, and Amy slipped in barefoot, carrying her shoes and sweater. She froze when I clicked on the bedside lamp. Her hair was mussed, her lipstick completely gone. She flushed deep crimson when she saw me watching her. "I thought you'd be asleep," she mumbled. "I had 3 drinks tonight. Enough to be angry, not drunk," I said, my voice steady. "Care to explain where you've been?" "You know exactly where I was," she shot back defensively. "You said you needed to mingle and network," I replied. "But the band stopped playing at 11. What were you doing for the past 2.5 hours?" "I was talking with Stephen," she answered, crossing her arms. "Margot's out of the country with her mother. He's here alone. We went to his suite to talk about company plans and where I might fit in." "So you spent over 2 hours alone in his room while I sat here wondering where you were," I said. "And you come back barefoot, with your lipstick gone and your hair a mess? Sounds like one hell of a strategic meeting." "Believe whatever you want," she snapped. "I need a shower and some sleep. We have meetings first thing tomorrow. Oh, by the way," she added casually over her shoulder, "I told Stephen I'd have dinner with him tomorrow night. We're supposed to check out tomorrow after your morning meeting," I said, struggling to stay calm. "What exactly are you planning to do between noon and dinner?" "You're going home," she said without a trace of emotion. "I'm going to Stephen's lake house for dinner." "So you're planning to spend the entire afternoon and evening alone with him," I said, my voice tight. "When were you planning to come home?" "I don't know," she said coldly, picking up her shoes and slipping into the bathroom without another word. If it got too late, I figured I'd just head back early Monday instead. Absolutely not, Amy snapped. You're not about to spend the entire weekend with that man and then casually waltz back into my house like everything's fine. Let's get one thing straight. I never accused you of doing anything wrong. And secondly, that house is mine, not yours. I just stood there, stunned. After I had poured time and effort into renovating it, Amy refused to use her yearly bonus to clear the construction debt. She insisted on refinancing the mortgage instead. Since I was unemployed back then, I wasn't added to the loan, and Amy made it very clear that without being on the mortgage, my name wasn't going on the title either. It irritated me, but we'd both agreed we wouldn't stay long after the renovations were done. I assumed that by the time we bought our next place, I'd have a steady job again, and my name would finally be on the deed, so I let it go. Now she stood there, arms folded across her chest, a smug grin pulling at her lips. I swung my legs out of bed and started pulling my clothes on. I grabbed my suitcase from the floor and flung it onto the bed, wrenching open drawers and stuffing them full of clothes in anger. "And now what?" she said, sneering. "Running off like a child? Where exactly do you plan to go? No house, no job, not a penny to your name? What's your master plan, genius?" "I'll sleep in my car if I have to," I fired back, my voice thick with rage. "I'm not staying here and letting you humiliate me. I'll file for divorce, Amy. I'm not sticking around with a cheater." She laughed, cold and hollow. "You poor idiot. You're broke. I'm the one who keeps the lights on. Without me," she added, her voice dripping with disdain, "you'd be rotting under an overpass somewhere. Grow up. Tomorrow I have a critical meeting with Stephen. He's backing me for the COO position. My salary's about to double, and my bonuses will triple. We'll finally be able to buy the kind of luxury home we've always dreamed about, in a private, gated neighborhood." "I don't care about a fancy house," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I care about having a faithful wife. I want a marriage that actually matters. Amy, listen to me. You don't have to do this. You're talented. You can earn that promotion without selling your soul to him." Amy dropped her gaze to the floor, her voice barely above a whisper. It's too late for that. And in that moment, everything became clear. This wasn't about what might happen tomorrow. It was about what had already happened. I stared at her, my stomach knotting. "You already slept with him." She shrugged, rolling her eyes. "Don't be so dramatic." "You destroyed everything we had," I said, feeling the weight of it crash over me. "You're blowing it way out of proportion," she replied, almost casually. "So what if I cheated? I'll take a quick shower, and by Monday it'll be like it never happened. We'll be rich. Life will move on. It's just business," she said, with a careless flick of her hand. "In a few days, you'll barely think about it." "I know I won't." I shoved the last of my clothes into the suitcase, yanked the zipper closed, grabbed my jacket, and stormed out without looking back. I jumped into my car and sped out of the driveway, ignoring the constant buzzing and chiming of my phone from Amy's calls and texts. Oddly, I wasn't overwhelmed by heartbreak. Mostly, I felt a strange, aching emptiness. The further I drove, the less traffic there was. I set the cruise control and leaned back against the seat, numb. As I drove, the past half-year replayed in my mind like a broken record. After Amy's first big promotion, everything about her changed. Her hunger for status and wealth had devoured everything else: love, loyalty, even family. She didn't treasure what we had anymore. Her ambition had swallowed the woman I used to know. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. The Amy I had married was gone. The warmth, the kindness, the partnership we had, it had all been consumed by her endless climb up the corporate ladder. Tears blurred my vision as I mourned the woman I had loved for more than 20 years. When Monday morning arrived, the weight of dread pressed down on me. I called a former co-worker who immediately gave me the name of a good family lawyer. I wasted no time, dialed the number, and explained my situation. "Mr. Dixon," the receptionist said kindly, "Ms. Hawk usually handles cases for women. Mostly wives wronged by unfaithful husbands. I'm not sure why your friend suggested her for you. I'm a stay-at-home husband, I clarified. My wife's the high-flying executive, and she's the one who cheated. There was a short pause, then an astonished, "Oh, well, that would be a first for Ms. Hawk. Can you come in around 11:30? I got to Sally Hawk's office about 10 minutes early." The receptionist greeted me warmly as I signed in. After about 20 minutes, a petite woman with dark hair appeared and called my name. "Mr. Dixon? I'm Sally Hawk. Come with me." I followed her into a private office, where she listened carefully as I recounted everything that had happened. She jotted notes rapidly, her face serious. "So you've been handling the house for about 2 years now?" she asked. 3 years, I corrected gently. My company shut down our branch after it got sold. Around the same time, my wife got promoted. She convinced me to stay home, take care of the house, and handle everything while she built her career. "So," Sally said with a small, knowing smile, "it was her idea for you to become a house husband?" "Exactly," I confirmed. She loved the setup. I did everything, cooking, cleaning, repairs, so she could focus fully on her work. She nodded, her sharp gaze meeting mine. "That's excellent. Very, very good. When did you first begin to suspect trouble in your marriage?" Honestly, it wasn't until quite recently that the idea even entered my mind that she might be cheating. But reflecting on it now, I can see that the warning signs were likely there almost a year ago. It was just this past weekend that she finally admitted to the affair, and that's why I'm sitting here with you today. Mr. Dixon, I'm truly sorry you're dealing with this, but I want you to know that you'll come out stronger, and I'll ensure your rights are fully protected during the divorce process. You said she came clean about her infidelity. Do you have any proof? Did you happen to record her confession? No, I didn't manage to record it. From what you've observed, do you think her co-workers are aware of the affair? I'm pretty sure they are. Based on how they've been acting, I'd bet most of them know what's going on. All right. Since we're in a no-fault divorce state, proving adultery isn't necessary. However, if we have evidence, it could definitely give us an advantage when it comes to settlement negotiations. Would you be willing to let one of my private investigators take a closer look? I usually work with Masters Investigations. Jack Masters and I go way back, and his team is top-notch. Yeah, that sounds smart. I should probably move some money before she tries to cut me off. I'm guessing you have joint financial accounts? Yes. We have a shared checking account at Chase that I mostly use for everyday expenses. The bulk of our finances is tied up in a jointly managed investment portfolio. Beyond that, she also has multiple accounts under her own name. Here's what I recommend. As soon as we finish up here, head straight to Chase and withdraw everything but $1 from that joint account. Put the money into a new account under your name only. And for your own security, don't even tell me where you put it. Meanwhile, I'll get a court order to freeze the investment assets and demand complete disclosure of her individual accounts. I had just left the bank when my phone started vibrating. It was a call from Jack Masters. "Mr. Dixon, Sally Hawk gave me your information. Do you have a moment to talk privately?" I climbed into my car, locked the doors, and answered. "Yeah, I'm parked outside the bank right now." Jack said Sally had briefed him on the situation. His team would start investigating immediately. He asked, "What's your plan with the house? Are you staying?" I told him I didn't really have the funds to move out unless I liquidated some investments. "Got it. You can't legally evict her, but you can create some separation. My advice? Move into another bedroom and put a solid lock on the door. If you want, I can have one of my guys come install it. We should also set up cameras inside the house as soon as possible. I'm heading home now. I'll pick up a lock set on the way and should be back in about 40 minutes. Once I made it home, I got the new lock installed, while Jack's crew discreetly positioned cameras throughout the house. I gathered up all my belongings and moved into the bedroom farthest from the master suite. Luckily, I had renovated that room recently, and it had its own little bathroom. Later that evening, a motion alert pinged my phone from the driveway cam. I pulled up the feed and saw Amy getting out of a limo, but I couldn't tell if anyone else was still inside. The driver carried her luggage into the house and left. I was holed up in my new room, monitoring everything on my laptop's split screen. I watched her roam through the house, calling out for me. She entered the master bedroom, looked around, and, when she noticed the empty closet, muttered a frustrated, "Damn." She peeked into the bathroom and then walked back out. Moments later, she rattled the handle on my new bedroom door. "John? Are you in there? What do you want?" I called out from behind the locked door. "John, honey, please open up. Why did you move all your stuff out of our room? It's not our room anymore. It's yours now." "John, seriously, why would you do this? Stop being ridiculous and let me in." "No, you're not welcome in here. Go take a shower, clean yourself up. We'll talk afterward. Meet me in the kitchen." I heard her gasp in shock, then stomp off. Watching through my laptop, I saw her undress as she headed into the master bathroom. I left my room, locked the door behind me, and made my way toward the kitchen, keeping one eye on the security feed on my phone. Amy reappeared wearing only a t-shirt, no bra underneath, clearly a calculated move. Even though I knew exactly what she was trying to do, I couldn't help but notice the deliberate sway in her walk as she descended the stairs. "There, all clean. Good as new. Happy now?" she asked, her voice edged with mockery. "Happy? Are you serious? I might never feel happy again. You cheated. You wrecked everything we built. I'm done with you." For a split second, her face showed real shock, but almost immediately, it twisted into anger. "Listen to me, John Dixon. Nothing has changed. Nothing is going to change. You need to get over this stupid jealousy and stop acting like a fool. Yeah, I slept with him. So what? Big deal. So what if I cared too deeply? Who was even keeping track? I loved him. And now that loyalty should pay off when they consider me for COO. It was nothing personal. Strictly business. Now go pack your things and move them back into our bedroom." "How many, Amy?" I asked, my voice low. "How many what?" "What nonsense are you babbling now?" she snapped back. "How many men have you slept with? Was it all a business tactic, or did you enjoy it too?" I pushed further. Her jaw dropped. "What? How dare you accuse me of that?" "It was only Stephen, and you know the reasons behind it." She tossed a careless shrug. "Honestly, he wasn't even close to you." "That's rich," I replied with a bitter laugh. "I'm surprised you even remember what we had. Let's not kid ourselves. It's been a long time since there was real love between us, even longer since there was any real passion." "That's not fair," Amy argued, confusion flashing across her face. "We are intimate. It's just that—" Her voice faltered. "If I'm not mistaken," I said, my voice sharp with resentment, "the last time you made love to me was the night you got your promotion." "That wasn't that long ago," she muttered, guilt flickering across her features. "It's been 6 months, Amy," I stated flatly. Her expression crumbled. "Oh, John. I'm sorry. I've just been so consumed by work. Hurting you was never what I intended." She reached for my hand. "Let me fix it. I swear I'll make things right." "You swear?" I let out a cold, hollow laugh. "Just like you vowed on our wedding day to stay faithful?" "Come on, John." "Please let it go," she pleaded. "My affair with Stephen is over. It's behind me. I'll admit, I lost sight of what mattered because I was desperate for his support. But it's done now. Please, come back. Let's work through this." I shook my head slowly. "Thanks, but no thanks. I'm not interested in picking up your scraps. You probably hooked up with him again this morning, and even though you scrubbed yourself clean, I'm not an idiot." She shot me a venomous glare. "Fine. Stay locked up in your little room. I don't need you. Plenty of men out there would kill for a chance with me. Hell, maybe I'll sleep with every executive on the board. Maybe that'll get me promoted even faster." With that, she spun around and stormed upstairs. Later that night, Sally and I listened to the surveillance tapes Jack's team had recorded of my fight with Amy. Sally's advice was simple: stay detached and be polite. Within 3 days, Jack's investigators uncovered evidence suggesting Amy had likely slept with both Stephen and the head of HR around the time she got promoted to senior EVP, although hard proof remained elusive. Still, the information confirmed what I feared all along. Amy's betrayal had begun the moment her career ambitions took over, and if she was willing to sell out for SEVP and COO, what lines would she cross for the CEO role? I realized I couldn't stay married to someone who'd sacrifice our relationship for a career boost. I instructed Sally to initiate divorce proceedings. Jack's people uncovered an offshore account Amy had secretly set up, and Sally managed to force Mega Enzius Corporation to release her complete payroll records. Turns out Amy had strategically chosen stock options over salary raises, no doubt part of a long-term strategy to amass enough equity for a future power grab at the board level. Sally fought hard for me, and won. I walked away with half our stock holdings and a hefty cash settlement. When the house sold, Amy would owe me half its market value, too. After legal fees, I ended up with about $6,000 between cash and investments. The house was valued at $65,000, which meant another $3,000 would eventually come my way after the sale. I wouldn't be rolling in wealth, but I wouldn't have to worry about keeping the lights on either. Maybe Sally pitied me a little, because she introduced me to Carol Hillman, a sharp, independent woman who had recently finalized her divorce and retained ownership of her small manufacturing firm after her ex ran off with his accountant. Sally told Carol she didn't need a man in her life, but she definitely needed a reliable accountant. Carol hired me after just one meeting. After 3 months working at Carol's company, she asked me to dig into her financials. I reorganized her books and filed an amended tax return that landed her a $3,000 refund. In gratitude, Carol invited me over for a homemade dinner. 1 meal and 2 bottles of wine later, Carol confessed that she was lonely and missed having a man around. At 55, Carol was still an attractive woman, and given the bleak dating prospects, I didn't think twice. We began a discreet affair, keeping our relationship private from everyone at work. Truth be told, I was starting to genuinely fall for her, and by the way she looked at me, I believed the feeling was mutual. I knew it wouldn't be long before we'd have to sit down and have an honest conversation about us. About a month after my divorce from Amy was finalized, her name came up in consideration for the COO position. At the board meeting, Stephen stood and gave a long, enthusiastic speech singing her praises. But just before the vote, every board member's inbox pinged with an anonymous email containing an audio clip, Amy's voice admitting she had traded her dignity for Stephen's endorsement. The board wasted no time rejecting Stephen's recommendation. Instead, they reinstated William Davis as chairman of the board. William's first order of business was to fire Stephen, who also happened to be his soon-to-be ex-son-in-law. His second act was to appoint his daughter, Margot Davis, as the new COO. One of Margot's first moves was to summon Amy to her office and fire her on the spot. When word of Amy's downfall reached me, I couldn't suppress a chuckle. A few weeks later, I bumped into her at the checkout line of a grocery store. The moment she saw me, she completely unraveled, sobbing and pelting me with produce in front of a stunned crowd. The store manager fired her immediately. Apparently, maintaining a job was proving far more difficult than Amy had ever imagined. Our story has come to an end. What do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the way I tell stories, head over to my channel and check out my other videos. May the force be with you. See you soon, my friend.